All right, guys, so as I'm sure many of you know by now, the Frederick County Sheriff, Jenkins, has been federally criminally indicted, along with another gentleman by the name of Robert Kropp. We're going to talk about him in a minute, but here we have the full indictment in front of us. This is the official charging document that alleges these two of committing federal crimes. But before we do a deep dive and a deep overview synopsis of this indictment, the first thing we're going to do is just give a brief description, a brief overview of what is in this document, just like a quick summarization before we do a deep dive. I think that would certainly be in order. So what this is a 6-count indictment that alleges that from August of 2015 to May of 2022, Sheriff Jenkins and Robert Kropp. Now, let's just put the brakes on for a moment. Robert Kropp, notably, is a firearms dealer in Frederick County, Maryland. So that's who that is. So Sheriff Jenkins and Kropp conspired to unlawfully purchase. The allegation is that Jenkins and Kropp conspired to unlawfully purchase machine guns and falsified documents on the Frederick County Sheriff's Office letterhead requesting machine guns for evaluation and demonstration to the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. They wanted machine guns to demonstrate to their sheriff's office. So whatever that means, to show the officers, to train the officers, whatever that means, they wanted machine guns for the purpose of evaluation and demonstration for the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. Kropp allegedly drafted these documents for Jenkins, and Jenkins ultimately signed off on them. And also, according to the indictment, Jenkins and Kropp knew this is where I guess we would say where the crime comes in. Jenkins and Kropp knew that there would not be a demonstration of the machine guns to the sheriff's office. So that's where the catch-22 is that they say this is what the purpose is, but actually the allegation is that they knew they were getting these machine guns not for the purpose of demonstration for the Frederick County Sheriff's Office, but instead were intended for rental property to be used by Kropp's customers at his firearm dealership. So that's the catch right there. Kropp allegedly possessed 7 machine guns, and the indictment further alleges that Kropp's business offered political support to Sheriff Jenkins' re-election campaign. So with that being said, that's the brief synopsis of this indictment here. But now we are going to do a further deep dive. But just remember, keep in mind our two players here, Sheriff Jenkins and Robert Kropp, who is this firearms dealer in Frederick County, Maryland. So here we are. Obviously, this is page 1. USA versus Charles Austin Jenkins and Robert Justin Kropp. And then we start off right here. It just goes right into it. Count 1, conspiracy to interfere with government functions and to violate federal law regulating machine gun. And then it starts off with relevant individuals and entities. So this is where it starts to give a breakdown of who are our defendants. Who is the Department of Justice listing as defendants? What are their backgrounds? Who are these people? So it starts off number 1. Of course, we know, many of you probably know who Jenkins is. If you live in Frederick City or Frederick County, you probably know who this is. But for those of you who don't, we'll go over a little bit. He is a sworn law enforcement officer of the Frederick County, Maryland Sheriff's Office. He was elected sheriff of Frederick County Sheriff's Office in 2006 and was subsequently reelected most recently in 2022. So that's right, he's been our sheriff since 2006. As sheriff, he was the Frederick County Sheriff's Office Chief Law Enforcement Officer. So that's how it works. Jenkins is our number 1 in the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. The Frederick County Sheriff's Office was the primary law enforcement agency for all incorporated areas of Frederick County, Maryland, and provided support to municipal law enforcement agencies within Frederick County and to other public agencies, including courts and detention centers in 2021. Then we list our second defendant, who is Robert Justin Kropp. He is a resident of Frederick County and the principal owner and operator of a firearms-related business, namely RK86 LLC and TMGN LLC, both doing business as, this is the name of the business, the Machine Gun Nest, and both of which were based in Frederick County, Maryland, in the District of Maryland. Kropp and his businesses together so this is what they hold, this is their license. They hold 2 federal firearms licenses with special occupational tax, or SOT, collectively referred to as FFL/SOT. These allow Kropp and his business, under certain circumstances, to possess and deal in fully automatic firearms. So what it's saying is that these 2 licenses that Robert Kropp and his business have, they, under some circumstances, would allow him to gain access to these machine guns. Because remember, civilians cannot own a machine gun. I'm sure many of you probably know that, but just as a little tidbit of information, you or me, public citizens, we cannot own, these types of weapons of war. You need a special circumstance to be able to do that. And so what it's saying basically is that this Robert Kropp, he has the ability, with the licenses that he holds, he has the ability to get possession of these firearms, these machine guns, under a specific circumstance. So that's what that's saying. These types of licenses are regulated by the National Firearms Act, Title 26 of the United States Code, Section 5801, so on and so forth. Then it goes on to say, which I've already spoken about a little bit, that federal law generally prohibits the possession, transfer, and importation of machine guns that were imported or manufactured after May 19th, 1986, except by bona fide government agencies. So the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives was an agency within the executive branch of the U.S. government that, among other things, administered and enforced federal law concerning machine guns. Any domestic purchase, sale, or transfer of machine gun must first be approved by ATF's National Firearms Act Division, NFA. So that's what that is. That any permanent importation of a machine gun must be first approved by ATF's Firearms and Explosive Imports Branch. So again, this is just going over the list of the prerequisites of, if you actually want to get your hands on one of these, what somebody would have to do. This is just a little bit of background on that. This is key law, what we're about to get into right here, because this is where we start to get into where the crime was committed. So it starts off by saying there is an exemption to the general machine gun prohibition that does allow a properly licensed and qualified FFL/SOT to possess, transfer, and or import a machine gun for use as a sample for demonstration to potential law enforcement or military purchasers. Pursuant to ATF regulations, the exception requires the law enforcement agency who is requesting a demonstration of the machine gun to submit, quote, a law letter to the ATF. A law letter is an industry term that refers to a letter drafted and signed by a law enforcement official expressing need for a particular model of machine gun in seeing such a demonstration of that model of machine gun for potential future purchase by the law enforcement agency for use in official duties. The dealer sales sample exemption requires the dealer to have a law letter prior to the purchase of the machine gun, and this must be submitted with the requisite ATF form. So these are just some of the laws and regulations that surround that. So when you look at this first part of the conspiracy, A through, I believe it's E, basically what it's saying in this portion is that These two defendants knowingly and willfully made false statements to various federal agencies in relationship to getting possession of these firearms. And then when you start to look at the purpose of the conspiracy, it says that it was the purpose of the conspiracy to acquire machine guns by means of fraud and materially false statements and representations, and to rent those machine guns to private citizens in exchange for money. So now we have a heading called Manner and Means of the Conspiracy. The manner and means by which the defendants sought to accomplish the purpose of the conspiracy included, but were not limited to, the following. The defendants sought to and did acquire machine guns by falsely representing that the machine guns would be used as dealer sales samples for demonstration purposes to the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. These false representations were contained in law letters on Frederick County Sheriff's Office letterhead, which were signed by Sheriff Chuck Jenkins and addressed to Crop. While these law letters represented that the Frederick County Sheriff's Office requested a demonstration of the listed machine guns, it was Crop, in fact, who had asked Jenkins to submit the letters so that Crop could acquire the guns and rent them out to customers at TMGN in order to generate revenue for TMGN. TMGN received over $100,000 in profits from the rental of machine guns in years 2018 and 2019 alone. Crop was a constituent of Jenkins, and TMGN was a small business located within the jurisdiction of the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. TMGN offered political support to Jenkins in recognition of his support for TMGN's business. We move on and we start to see communications between these two. It says on May 5th, 2022, the chief operating officer with TMGM's sent Jenkins the following email. Good afternoon, Sheriff Jenkins. I am reaching out in hopes to set up a meeting with you to discuss the upcoming election cycle and talk about what we can do to support your re-election as sheriff in Frederick. We have appreciated everything that you have done for the city of Frederick, as well as support for the Second Amendment in our business. Let us know what we can do to organize something hopefully in the near future. We look forward to hearing from you. It goes on. On May 10th, 2022, Sheriff Jenkins responded to the chief operating officer for TMGN with the following email. Good morning. I would be very happy to meet and discuss what we could do at the MGN. That would be outstanding. Let's meet soon and see what we can come up with. Thank you very much. I'll call you later today and we can determine a time to meet. Sheriff Chuck Jenkins. On May 10th, 2022, the COO of TMGN responded, Good morning, Sheriff Jenkins. This sounds great. I am going to be out of the office until Thursday, dealing with a personal matter. Would you be able to call my owner, Stephanie, who will be helping organize the campaign? Her cell phone number is, and that's redacted. We look forward to getting together and working on this. It says further, the letters falsely stated that the machine guns were, quote, this is a quote, particularly suitable for use as a law enforcement weapon due to cost, availability, and its use in day-to-day patrol as well as special operations, when in fact at least one of the machine guns was not. The defendants caused the submission of false law letters to a licensed dealer. So then moving on to count 2, which is false statements during purchase of firearms, it goes on to say that Chuck Jenkins and Robert Crop, in connection with the acquisition of a firearm, P90 tactical machine gun, they knowingly made a false and fictitious written statement to FN, which statement was intended and likely which was intended and likely to deceive FN as to a fact material to the lawfulness of such acquisition of the said firearm under Chapter 44 of Title 18. So moving on to count 3, we have false statements in records maintained by federal firearms licensee. Chuck Jenkins and Robert Kropp did knowingly and willfully make and cause to be made false statements and representations with respect to information under Chapter 44 of Title 18 of the United States Code, required to be kept in the records of individuals licensed under Chapter 44. Moving on to counts 4 and 5, it looks like they have lumped those together. These are false statements to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. It states that Charles Jenkins and Robert Kropp did knowingly and willfully make false writings and documents to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. It lists what those documents are right here. It says right here, April 10th, 2018, a law letter on Frederick County Sheriff's Office letterhead requesting firearms demonstrations of FN P90 and FN M249 SAW machine guns from Jenkins to Kropp, knowing the same to contain material, false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements. In truth and fact, the Frederick County Sheriff's Office had not requested a demonstration. Rather, Kropp had requested the letter so that he could import the machine guns and rent them to customers at TMGN. Further, the machine guns were not, quote, particularly suitable for use as a law enforcement weapon due to cost, availability, and use in day-to-day patrol as well as special operations, because the FN M249 SAW was a belt-fed machine gun suitable only for use in combat. And then we have a March 29th, 2022 letter. This says a law letter on Frederick County Sheriff's Office letterhead requesting firearms demonstrations of 6 Sig Sauer Incorporated machine guns from Jenkins to Kropp, knowing the same to contain material, false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements. In truth and fact, the Frederick County Sheriff's Office had not requested a demonstration. Rather, Kropp had requested the letter so that he could acquire the machine guns and rent them to customers at, again, TMGN. And then finally, we wrap it up with count 6. This is unlawful possession of a machine gun. It says, and this is just for Robert Kropp. It says he did knowingly and unlawfully possess machine guns, and it lists this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's 7 machine guns that he was not allowed to possess because he obtained them fraudulently and through false statements and applications, documentations, and so forth. So they are also hitting Robert Kropp with that unlawful possession of a machine gun charge as well. But it looks like that is going to be just for him. Then it goes on, the forfeiture. Firearms forfeiture, it goes on to say that upon conviction, possible conviction of any of these offenses, that the defendants named in this indictment would have to voluntarily surrender their firearms. And obviously that would be problematic for Sheriff Chuck Jenkins. You can't be a sheriff but not have a firearm. Yeah, you can read it right here. Shall forfeit to the United States any firearm involved in violation of Title 26, Chapter 53. The indictment is signed by Eric L. Barron, United States Attorney. The 4-person signature is redacted, and it is dated yesterday's date, April 5th, 2023. And wow, obviously this comes down very heavily. I, as a resident of Frederick County, I did not see this coming. This was something that people did not know about. This sort of surprised us out of the clear dark. There was no leaks as far as I know about any of this. And this sort of just landed like a weight to the floor. And it's sort of just unbelievably shocking and surprising. What's next to come? I don't know. There have been reports that Chuck Jenkins has retained his own private counsel that will represent him in this matter. We don't know who that is as of yet. This is all one day old. This is hitting us for the first time, but obviously very troublesome allegations for a county sheriff. And if he were to be convicted of any of these offenses, I think that would obviously have an impact on his tenure as sheriff. Although I don't know that for certain. I don't know what all the rules and regulations are to maintain that position. But this is the indictment as of yet. And I'm sure there will be lots more motions, lots more filings in the near future. And when those ultimately do find their way to our attention, perhaps that will be something that we look into when the time presents itself. And it's something that we will certainly be keeping our eyes on. So we'll catch you the next time.